All right, we are back with another episode of Nintendo Nightly. My name is Michael Cottrell, your host, and today on the show, I want to talk about this news article coming out of Kotaku that the Virtual Console is not coming to Switch, according to Nintendo. But before we get into that, if you want to stay up to date with all the latest Nintendo news, impressions, reviews, make sure you hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on, and you'll get to see me more often. I'll get to see you. Won't that be nice? Won't that be nice? And it's available in podcast and video form, so whatever you prefer, I work hard to offer those different things for you. So, let me know what you think of the show. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about the Virtual Console, because people have been waiting for the Virtual Console, waiting for the opportunity to buy Donkey Kong Country for the 15th time. I know I've been waiting too. Except I haven't. Virtual Console has always been a funny thing. I think it's a little too overpriced to really get me interested in the service. It started out with the Wii, and you would get the old school Super Mario Brothers, the one from 1980 something, and you would pay $5 for that. And that's, it's asking a little much, I think. It's asking a little much for a game that is that old, for a game that is so primal in terms of how complex it is that it can run in a Google Chrome browser. You're asking a little too much there, buddy. And I think in the same token, Super Nintendo, $8. I think the NES games should be $1 to $3, Super Nintendo at $5, and 64 at $10, and then, whatever with the other stuff. But they try and charge, $15, $20 for the N64 games, and I can't have that. I can't have that, especially when a lot of times not until the Wii U and 3DS versions did you get like very standard emulation procedure with like being able to create save states and edit your controls, different functions that free things on the internet that we won't talk about today have always done, but Nintendo for this premium paid version did not. Also, fun fact, they didn't transfer from system to system, so you could buy it on the Wii, the 3DS, and the Wii U. Sometimes you get a discount when you buy the Wii U version in addition to the Wii version, but it's always been a little bit of a shameless money grab to me, because they didn't really put much effort into it. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of development, but I'm just saying, like, people who we won't talk about doing things that are free have figured out how to do this without getting paid at all or without any business model surrounding it, and Nintendo can't do any better as a rich multinational corporation. It's always been asking a little much for not a lot in return. And not that Nintendo really needs to like wow me or they need to they have to do better than your friendly neighborhood pirates, but I've never seen the point of really diving into the Virtual Console for that reason. For certain games that you can't find anymore, it's great. For certain games that are like overpriced if you try and get them on the original console, or maybe you don't have access to the original console, that's fantastic. But I think eventually we're going to have to figure out some way to get like one box, like a Nintendo box and maybe Switch will be this. Maybe Switch will be, in the long run, just a platform that we can always play our games on. But the preservation of games is really tough, because there's a specific piece of hardware designed for every game. And if you try and put that in another piece of hardware, most of the time it won't work. And there's these eventual points that we come to where people can emulate the way that a Super Nintendo works, put it in a portable thing, and you can smack a Super Nintendo cartridge into a Game Boy looking thing. And that's really cool. But there's not really been a definitive easy way to do that, like you would see with like a DVD player, a Blu-ray player, CD player for music. You get the point. And that's been honestly really tough. And I think that is something that Nintendo should try and solve. But for now, it looks like Virtual Console is not coming to Switch. So according to this article in Kotaku, Jason Schreier writes that they were in email correspondence with Nintendo, and they said that there are currently no plans to bring classic games together under the Virtual Console banner, as has been done on other Nintendo systems. A Nintendo spokesperson told Kotaku in an email. Now, Virtual Console is the specific brand that we're talking about here, and really it's the terminology doesn't really hold as much weight as it used to. Back in 2008, when downloading games was a novelty, this was a novelty as well. Like, oh, we're getting this like digital spiritual version, and it's just coming down from the heavens onto my gaming system, and I can play it. But nowadays, I mean, that's just how games work. You just download them. So I think the Virtual Console name is sort of losing its relevance, and I think Nintendo is realizing that. I think they're also realizing the changes in how we consume media these days. I mean, when you look at services like Netflix, services like YouTube, services like Hulu, there's all sorts of different things being done with how we purchase and how we consume media. And you look at the music industry with Spotify and with CDs being taken out of Best Buys all over the country. And you can look to even some games services. Everybody's been trying to accomplish Netflix for games per se, and Microsoft looks like they're getting pretty close to it. But this is going to be something that Nintendo is going to be considering and not just shooting from the hip on, especially while Nintendo Switch is doing as well as it is without having your favorite classic Nintendo games on it. There's also the complication of having the NES Classic and the SNES Classic, those physical hardware pieces that you're selling for a flat $60, $80 and giving them a collection of games. Maybe they release versions of those that you can buy and they won't be horrendously limited in stock, and maybe you can update them and maybe you can load more games on them. I don't know, but it's interesting to me that that people are so dead set on this Virtual Console system, because at the same time, Nintendo has been releasing classic Nintendo games on the Nintendo Switch, just not really under this banner. So later on in the email, there's another quote saying there are a variety of ways in which classic games from Nintendo and publishers are made available on the Nintendo Switch, such as through the Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo eShop as packaged collections. The Nintendo Entertainment System - Nintendo Switch Online will provide a fun new way to experience those classic NES games. That's weird. That's a weird way of saying that. But they've been releasing the arcade classics. We've got the Neo Geo classics. We got things that are coming in, and Sega has been planning on bringing Genesis games to the Nintendo Switch as well. It's gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen in the traditional Virtual Console way of doing that, and I think it opens up more possibilities for it to be its own thing. I'd much rather see a version of Donkey Kong Country where I don't know, in the second one they made Donkey Kong playable, or just giving more room for going further than just emulation. And I also really like the physical keepsake of having an SNES or the NES Classic, so I hope to continue seeing stuff like that. I really love a Game Boy one and an N64 one, so on and so forth. It's just nice to have that memorabilia, especially for the systems that have either been too damaged to work or I don't have anymore. As far as the Nintendo Switch goes, I do definitely understand how the appeal of getting classic games on there, playing a 2-player Super Mario World or Donkey Kong Country on the tabletop mode of the Switch with the sideways Joy-Con. I definitely see the utility and the great just synergy in that. But I think this is going to be something that we're really going to have to wait and see on, because my guess is over at Nintendo, they're not really sure how they want to do this on Switch. Do they want to make this a part of the online service and making it just this sort of Netflix for games for Nintendo, where you're paying into the online service, they're getting the money they need, and so they let you access the ROMs while you're paying for it? I think that would be a really cool way to experience it. I mean, if we were to try and buy individually all the NES games that we are supposed to be getting on the Nintendo Switch, if we were buying those on the Wii U, then that'd be $100 worth of games just for that. And with this online service, for a yearly package, we can play any of those games with added online functionality and everything else that the service includes. And I think that's awesome. It's a much better way, much preferred way to do that, because some of these games, I mean, if you really wanted to get back into them, I mean, you could probably be done with them in a day or two. And I think it's nice for people who don't want to commit to smacking down $5 on a game that might be too hard for them because it was like just a part of another time, to just be able to jump in, experience it, take it for what it is, and leave, to have a better experience with those classic games. So I think that we're gonna have to wait and see, because right now it's with NES stuff, and that's very scalable, like infinitely scalable, and it's not too difficult to add those other functionalities because they're very small, contained games. Will this ever get to the point of having GameCube games and things of that nature? I don't know. GameCube has been a sorely missing part of the virtual console, and I think that's partly because Nintendo also wants the option of taking something like Wind Waker, slapping an HD coat of paint on it, doing absolutely nothing else with it, and selling it for $60 to you because you'll buy it again. You know, Nintendo wants to do some of that stuff, and so we're just gonna have to wait and see. And in the meantime, we'll enjoy these NES games. I'm gonna guess once things slow down with, you know, a post Pokemon, post Super Smash Brothers world, that's when we start to hear more about any sort of other classic offerings. But until then, I think this is what we're getting for the rest of this year at least. But that's just my take. I'd love to know what you think. Write down in the comments below what you think about this news bit, what you think about Nintendo's current offerings as far as classics go, between the 3DS, Wii U, Nintendo Switch, the classic systems that have been re-released. Let me know what you think about all this. I'd love to chat in the comments. You can also write into the show at thebentoblock.com/Nintendo Nightly, and I'd love to know what you think there. So that is all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video for more Nintendo Nightly.